How you doing? I'm Peter from Peter's Plumbing. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about electric tank water heaters, the elements, and the thermostats. Okay, if you are a plumber doing service out there, you need to have a multimeter. If you do not have a multimeter and you do not have the ability to check elements and thermostats, do not call yourself a plumber. Okay, you have to have that ability, that knowledge, and the equipment to do it. Okay, if not, you should not be on the road doing service. Okay, this is a multimeter. Okay, you can buy a cheap one anywhere. I like to use the cheaper ones. Okay, they work perfect for me. Okay, so pretty much if you get to a house and there's a tank water heater and they tell you we just replaced it 3 months ago, you cannot tell the customer you need to replace your water heater. Okay, that is not how we work. You have to check your elements. You have to see if there's a problem with the electricity. You have to see if there's a problem with the thermostat or the elements. Okay, so this is what we need to check, what we got to check. Okay, number one, you have to have 220 volts coming in through the top. Okay, having your pen, electric pen tester, does not tell you if you have 220 volts on the top. Okay, so I'll tell you things that's happened in the past. You get to a heater that has, the house has no hot water. You go and you put your electricity pen on here and it shows it has electricity. Just because it has electricity doesn't mean that it has 220 volts. Okay, so you need to use a multimeter to see that you have 220 volts. Okay, if you put the multimeter and it shows it has 150, 110 volts, what's that mean? That means you have a problem from there that way. Most likely your breaker is blown. Okay, you could replace the breaker for the customer and that will resolve the problem. You replace the breaker, you test it again, now you got 220, now you're good. Okay, now your heater should work. Okay, vice versa. Now you come here, you check, there's 220, meaning everything's okay from the breaker all the way to the heater. Okay, there's 220 volts coming into the heater. That means your heater should be performing. Okay, so from that point on, we're gonna check the elements. Okay, there's a couple different ways to check elements. Okay, I'm gonna show you a simple way to check elements. Okay, you turn on your multimeter, you put it on the lowest setting on ohms. Okay, which is about 20 ohms right there. Okay, so you put on ohms right there and you disconnect your cables. Okay, so I'll give the example of this element right here that wasn't there. Okay, so now your cables are disconnected. You take them out of the way. Your element is still in there, and you're gonna put the prong on each screw. Okay, you see there? There's no reaction, right? If there's no reaction, you have a bad element. How do I know this is a bad element? Because I cut out a piece of it. So this is how you check to see if you have a bad element. And if you have a bad element, it's because it broke down somewhere on the metal. Okay, so I'll give you an example of a good element. This is a brand new element. It's a good element. We're still on 20 ohms here. Okay, and this is what we see. Okay, that's a good element. All right, so that's a simple way for you to check if your elements are good on your heater. I mean, it could happen as simple as you're doing an installation and you're with a new apprentice or a new helper, right? And you install the heater and your helper goes and turns on the heat, the breaker, right? What happened? When he did that, he blew both your elements. He burned your elements. Okay, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna pack up the heater and take it back to the store and get a new one? No, you're gonna replace your elements. Okay, you should always have inside your truck an element kit. In Home Depot, the Home Depot one is about $35. It comes with 2 thermostats and 2 elements. They're pretty much universal. Okay, so you should have it in your truck always. It's much easier to change the elements in the thermostat than to have to go get a new heater and replace the heater. Okay, so That's one way of doing it. Now we take off the elements. Traditionally, we use this piece here to take off the elements. Okay? It fits right in here. And usually you could use a monkey wrench or a screwdriver. Okay? I like to have my own socket to take them off. Some elements are going to be very tight, especially if it's a little bit rusted. It's going to be very, very tight if it's been there for many years. Okay? But again, if the tank doesn't have a leak and it's not rusted, you can repair your water heater. Okay? Pretty much almost any water heater that is not rusted and not leaking, you can repair it and you're going to continue to get more life out of it. All right, guys, so when you're going to change an element, I want you to change both elements and both thermostats. Okay? If you want to be careful when you're changing a thermostat, if you want, take a picture of how the wires are connected so you remember how to put it when you put it back. Okay? Once you've done this several times, you're going to remember where everything goes. Okay? So that's real quick. Again, if you're doing service out there on the road, you should be checking your elements and your thermostats when it's appropriate. Okay? And there's going to be times where you have to troubleshoot a situation and you're going to have to check them out. Okay? I do charge them when we're with a customer. I do charge them to do that inspection. Okay? That's not a free inspection. Okay? So you could charge anywhere from $75 to $150 to do an inspection on the elements. Okay? All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. This has been a pleasure showing you about elements and thermostats on electric tank water heaters. Tune in for the next one.